All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Jess,
And I'm Scott.
and we are going to get into our exciting content very soon. But first, we just wanted to take a minute to walk through a few housekeeping points that are going to help you get the most out of your time with us here today. Scott, where should we start?
Yeah, so first I want to draw everyone's attention over to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, and post all your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. In fact, why don't you find that tab now and give it a test run by saying hi to the community here with us today. And as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Don't forget that a browser refresh should clear up any of the more common issues with slides or audio, but if not, just shoot a message in that questions tab and our team will be there to help.
I'm so glad you started with the questions tab, Scott, because I am going to take us all just one little hop over to the handouts tab. So the handouts tab is going to be absolutely full of cool resources and takeaways. You are going to want to check that out. It'll help you follow up on this exciting conversation that we are about to have. And in even better news, it is not just awesome content that we are giving away today. We also have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here in live attendance during the webinar, and all winners do need to meet the prize terms and conditions. But if you're not sure what those are, we have them linked for you right there in that handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So just click in, scroll down, you'll find them all waiting for you there.
And we have one more exciting prize to tell you about. So today we'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to the best question asked during the webinar. So keep in mind that the team will review all of the questions after the webinar wraps, which means that even if your question does not get read out in our live Q&A, there's still a chance to win. And as always, we'll reach out via email to our lucky winner after the event.
All right, well, I think that was it for all the housekeeping stuff. We are primed, we are ready to rock. Let's get to our webinar.
Hey everyone, Jess and Scott first. Thank you so much for those housekeeping tips. Great information. My name's Cindy Davis. I'm the content director for AV Technology, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this webinar, the Higher Ed AV IT Managers Classroom. As just mentioned, this is an interactive panel, and we hope that means you too. So throughout the webcast, please submit your questions via the question section of the console, and we'll take as many as we can. And don't forget to also download the helpful resources from the handout sections that's in the tab right next to that. So next, I want to thank our sponsors, Atlona, LG, Mersive, and Sennheiser. And next, our panel. I want to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, provide a bit of about themselves for some context for today's conversation, and about your university, areas you're responsible for, and your department and your role. So as I call your name, if you wouldn't mind, that would be wonderful. Introduce yourself. Chris, if you would.
Pleasure to be here this morning or afternoon, wherever you're at. I am Chris Bergen with the University of Oklahoma. I am based in the Health Sciences Center, but my department that I'm with covers all OU campuses. And if you see it or you hear it, we pretty much deal with it on campus. So we have a lot of things to take care of. We have a lot of centralized spaces. We have specialized spaces that have managers there that we assist. And we have a fairly decent sized staff along with student workers. So we have a lot of fun. It's a powerful group, and it's very interesting because every day there's something that makes you kind of scratch your head and gives us something to think about and a new way to approach it.
A decent sized staff. I've never heard that. It's three of us for the whole campus. So glad to hear that. And Mike, if you would.
Hi, I'm Mike Ferry with the University of Central Florida. I am the Assistant Director of Instructional Resources here at the university. Our department is the Office of Instructional Resources, and we are basically the audio-video arm for the university, not only from an integration standpoint, but from an events support standpoint and from a classroom support standpoint. My role is leadership and oversight of what we call the project services team, which is basically the internal integration arm, AV integration arm for the university. So I've got design, programming, commissioning, and then of course deployment of all of our spaces. We are one of the largest public universities in the country with close to 70,000 student total enrollment this fall. We manage close to 1,200 spaces institution-wide. And a cool fact is we are the top supplier for aerospace and defense workforce in the country. So a lot of our graduates, in fact, 30% of NASA's workforce came from UCF at some point along the way. So pretty cool. We're right in the backyard of the space industry. We get to watch launches at football games and walk out of our building and see rockets going up about once a week at this point, because we're doing a lot of commercial launch locally. So great to be able to support that industry.
That is a cool fact, and what a lot of fun. Ann, you're up next.
So I'm Ann Shimke. I'm a senior IT support consultant at the University of Iowa, formerly an Air Force veteran. I have 40 years in the field of technology, whether it's IT or AV. I've got 18 years of experience in various roles here at the University of Iowa. A little bit about our university. We have over 330 university classrooms across 34 campus buildings. They're organized into 12 colleges on a 2,000-acre campus, serving over 30,000 students and nearly 3,000 faculty members. A little bit about what I do. Jack of all trades, master of none, master of a few. I lead various classroom support services, wireless presentation, collaborative services, interactive scheduling displays, asset management, inventory control, and they're moving me into more of a project management for our AV side role. I led the project this past summer when we upgraded several of our rooms.
I'm betting it's master of all. Guaranteed, actually, from what I've heard. And Joe, last but certainly not least.
Hey, Cindy, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Yes, I am the Executive Director of Digital Spaces at University of California, Los Angeles. That's UCLA, which really means I oversee the design, installation, and support teams for all the general use classrooms, conference rooms, digital signage, live event spaces, hotel, conference spaces, live streaming service, probably a bunch of stuff that I haven't, that I've forgot to list. Across our enterprise, of course, and also preparing for hosting and being Olympic Village for the 2028 Olympics. So there's a headache to come. And as well, I am the co-founder of HETMA, the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance. We have thousands of members at hetma.org. I encourage everybody to go sign up for free and be able to continue to collaborate with your colleagues. And last and most important, I am a founding member of the Cindy Davis Fan Club and always will be. So thank you, Cindy, for having me.
You're the only member, though. That's the problem.
You know what? It's the wonder. I always get to be in charge. It goes where I want it to go. It's perfect.
We changed that today.
Oh, there we go. Very good. Thanks so much, all of you. I truly love monitoring the higher ed panels. It's truly a great community. But the higher ed panels, your group, and really everybody that's listening today, your teams adapt quicker than any other vertical I cover. Fashion and corporate, healthcare, truly any. I mean, as much as we stopped talking about the pandemic, that was certainly a really good example of how you adapt and get up to running very quickly. And when students go through your programs, your universities, they've set the standard for what they should expect in the workplace. So I'm hoping that I also have some corporate folks on here listening today, because this is what you need in your corporate environments as well. So let's get started. I want to start off with some success stories. I want to hear your success stories. The past couple of years, what technologies or procedures have been implemented in your classrooms or campus that have had the greatest impact? So I'll call each one of you individually for this one. Mike, start off if you would.
Yeah, so one of our big success stories over the last year and a half to 2 years really comes out of the pandemic, right? It's a direct result. As we all know, there was a tremendous amount of federal funding that flowed out to public institutions and private institutions across the country. And we were blessed with a good size endowment from the CARES Act and HERF funding. When I got here, we pivoted pretty quickly. My boss came to me and he's like, well, everything I told you when I hired you, we're going to change. We're going to do something a little bit different. And you've got X amount of dollars. You've got to purchase all the gear within, the next 10 to 12 months, and we've got to get it all deployed within 18 months total, which is a pretty big lift when you talk about size and scale of UCF. We were able to, through that process, we worked really hard to be as agile as we possibly could with our processes and procedures as we were updating some of those things. And we're able to touch and enhance 350 spaces across this university. And not all of those were complete retrofits. Some of them were just peripherals were badly needed, but some of them were complete retrofits, including some cutting edge classrooms. Tremendous lift. I give all the credit to the team for being willing to jump in and deal with it. And of course, we all remember how bad the supply chain was at that time. So that presented special challenges too. We were able to spend the money, but then had to wait to get the gear, which compressed the schedules on getting everything done. So a big success for us to touch a lot of spaces that had direct impact for our faculty. And of course, most importantly, our student success, because that's why we're all here in higher ed, right? At the end of the day, we're here to help our students be successful and get them out into the world. And if we're not able to do our jobs and be agile and smart about the way we go about it, it makes it that much more difficult for them to get and meet the goals that they've set for themselves. So it's a pretty cool opportunity.
Thanks.
To build off of what Mike had said on being agile on it, we did the same thing. We ran into product delays, and that led us to explore some alternatives. We now have two primary systems we use for control and for the audio video side, and it allows us to handle that delay in product, or gives us a more dynamic to where, okay, this room doesn't need this, so we can use this solution, or it needs this special feature that we can get out of this other solution. It was a hard decision to make. It took a lot of time, and we're still not fully there, but we've implemented it and we're getting better with each deployment, and we're deploying more and more of both systems so that we have an equal experience and have the ability to know what changes we need to make so that users can follow that and use room type A or room type B and not have to have training or rethink the wheel in that case.
Absolutely. And, standardization, which I'm sure is something we're going to be talking about later, in that familiarity of, room A or B, and it's all the same. Really great. Anne, how about you?
So one of the things, as the others have spoken and said, coming out of COVID, we felt that one of the big things was nobody wanted to touch anything. So we worked to get wireless collaboration, wireless presentation devices within our classrooms, of over 300 classrooms within a year, so they could come into the room and not necessarily have to handle that HDMI cable to present their data, present their information, their videos, what have you. This past summer, we worked to install 62 ADA accessible lecterns to bring us up to about 50% of our university classrooms having some type of lectern that was accessible for everyone. We also, you talk about standardization. We implemented a formal process for proactive room checks. So we send out our sneaker net, is what we call them, our student workers, and they go look for problems in the rooms. And if we're able to solve it before the instructor, we all know that's a win because we didn't interrupt the instruction. So that's one of the big things we do.
And we all know sneaker net from way back when, but put the sneakers on the students.
Yes, yep. Well, most of them do wear sneakers.
Yep. And Joe, how about some big successes from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I'm going to move away from the technology and the installation side, and I think that's the seat at the table. Right. If we look at, pre-pandemic and talking to our peers, we used to always complain that no one listens to us. We're pulled in late to projects. How do we get that voice to make sure the right solutions are there? And we saw, as the pandemic came in, the reliance upon everything we do. We were the ones that really saved many universities, and that respect that came from that. And that's where, if I look now and my role at, UCLA, I am as on the executive leadership team, right? The university said, hey, you know what, we need the quote unquote AV guy to be sitting at this level and this level of the university to make sure that the solutions that we're delivering are the ones that are there for our students, right? We just came out with our 5-year strategic plan for the entire university. Goal 4 has to do with modernizing our classrooms and the way we teach. And I actually chair one of the 2 committees for that. And I think that says a lot about the university and a lot about how our vertical has changed and the respect that we've gotten within our institutions over that amount of time. I'm hoping that it might be that I'm a rare case at UCLA, but hopefully that continues beyond and it starts to take a hold at other schools as well, where we can have that voice, because we did see the importance of technology. Our students are, and we've had this conversation on previous webinars, Cindy, about digital natives, and that the fact is they just don't know how to live without technology. And our faculty are now becoming reliant upon it because of our students. And now how we deliver those solutions is important. So, I'm proud to say I have the single best leadership and boss in the world, but it is her and her vision to say, look, we need to make sure that the quote unquote digital spaces team, the AV team, can have the direct voice to our leadership. And that's where, because I sit there, and I hopefully that's something that we can continue as we move forward at all of our schools.
So let's before I go to the next talking point, let's springboard that. How about from the rest of you? Has your voice changed? Go ahead.
Sorry, Cindy. I wanted to jump in there when Joe was talking. I have a bad habit of doing that. Apologize.
No, too.
So we have a new building going up on campus that's going to give us another 16 classrooms in our pool. And we've definitely had a seat at the table on all of this. Now, to say in the past, that has definitely not happened, but I have to give props to my director, Chris Clark, for making sure that we do have a seat at the table and that we are listened to. And that's not just, the capital projects, that's all projects across campus. And it's tough to get that seat, as you all know.
Chris and Mike, is that are you finding that within your roles as well?
Yeah, a little different. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, you're good.
So we at UCF, we work closely with what we call planning, design, and construction, which is the construction arm of the university. In fact, myself and 2 of their portfolio managers meet with another one of our IT leaders about once a month to kind of go through projects and where we are schedule-wise and all that. Design projects, as far as early days, we've been brought in pretty much since I've been here, pretty much from day one on design meetings to talk through what are those needs going to be. We've worked incredibly hard to standardize across the institution from an AV standpoint, so that if you walk into one room, it's going to act, sing, and behave like any other room you would walk into from a faculty standpoint. And driving home that point, they're published standards, including how we produce our drawings, how we produce our specifications, how we produce all of that stuff, right, documentation-wise, that goes into a construction project, and how all that dovetails in. That's been very, very well received at those levels.
For us, the change, granted, I'm on the health sciences side, so the pandemic was insane, to say the very least, with having 3 level 1 hospitals here and building a 500,000 square foot hospital at that same time. But that was tied alongside the university. It wasn't directly with the university. The thing that has changed the most for us is the audio video on the health sciences side was separate from IT, and everywhere else it was part of IT. So we combined those forces, became part of IT, and by being part of the IT dynamic, we have a larger seat, we have a larger say, and we're more in tune with the direction that the entire university is going as a system. And from the IT standpoint, from the business standpoint, and from the academic standpoint, one of the biggest issues we're facing right now is space, trying to find space for all of our classrooms and building fast enough to make that happen, which is not a bad problem to have.
That's not a bad problem to have, which I'm going to lead into next talking point is pain points. What are, as great as everything is going right now, there's always day-to-day pain points. So what are some of the bigger pain points that you guys are all dealing with? And, what are the solutions? And, maybe you can help each other through some of those pain points. Chris, start off, and then please jump in, everyone.
Got it. So change management. Honestly, what we're dealing with in audio video, we all remember going to VGA and then the slow, painful change to HDMI. We still have some people that use VGA, even though it hasn't been supported since, I believe, sunset was 2009. We change so fast. We even have trouble keeping up with it. So how do we expect our users and our consumers to keep up with that same amount of change? And how we present that to them, and not only with that it's a change, but that we stand behind it. So we have to take these changes, be on top of it, investigate it fully, have some people that we trust and that have a ongoing relationship with us that can handle hey, this kind of failed this way, and work it in before we release it to the masses. And then once we do release it to the masses, we have to release it in a way that they don't feel like it's being shoved down their throat, and they need to get that buy-in from them. And that usually, sometimes that comes from the heads, sometimes that comes from coworkers. And that's the one that we found gives us the most. When a coworker says, hey, I used this, it was great, I'll help you out, and they're helping each other. It's just like an active learning. When students are helping students learn, you get better results. Same way with instructors, when instructors are helping instructors learn. So getting that buy-in, getting that change, and letting them know that we stand behind it. Yes, this field is insane, and it will change directions like a tornado since I'm in Oklahoma. and it's kind of fun, but it's also an interesting challenge. There's many different ways to handle it. Each person's different. Each community's different. And being dynamic enough to take that into consideration and gentle enough to make those changes is an ongoing conversation and an ongoing discussion, not only internally, but with the departments and with the consumers.
I absolutely love that. I want to echo something that you said, because I think we're seeing the same thing with our pain points. A little bit of except I'm not a tornado. I'm going to call it an earthquake that's coming, being in LA. All right. Or it's a wildfire coming. So the thing is the reason we're actually going through an entire reorganization, and we're calling our digital campus roadmap, which is upgrading all of our technologies, is our average classroom has 18 years of tech debt. Okay, think what technology was like 18 years ago. Okay, and so not only with that, I mean, the sad part is it's actually the technology is the easy part, right? It's where we want to move forward. We want to there's great solutions from so many manufacturers out there. Finding something that works is actually easy. But echoing what you said, what we have to do now is change mentality of faculty, change mentality and the way people are leveraging their teaching, just working with the Teaching and Learning Center, who are great partners with us. They have to also, how do we, as we bring new technologies in, help our faculty be effective in the new technologies, because they've never had to do that, right? They've had the same kind of setup, the same, we walk in, even if it never works, they're still used to, hey, I know how to be effective in something that never works. Right. And that's the reality of what you're facing. So now actually taking them and saying, hey, we want to partner with you so that you can be effective, and changing that mentality for whether it be the academic senate or faculty senate, whatever, so that they can recognize the value that the new technology brings. And that's one of the things and the challenges and pain points that we're looking at. And we haven't quite gotten there yet. We're still in kind of our R&D phase and discovery phase, but we already know that, hey, and it's not that they're against it, but there's a fear. right? Because comfort is the hardest thing to break. When, and it doesn't matter. Even people who want new technologies, there is a fear of going out of that comfort zone, especially when there's 30 to 50 to 200 college age, kids sitting there staring at you, having to, be effective in something that you're not used to and change your teaching, and your teaching methodologies. So that is one of the things that we're working on, and we're partnering early and bringing in our, teaching and learning center. And I have Adeline on my staff, whose whole job is to focus on training and working with the faculty, so that when those new technologies come in 2026 and we do our full campus upgrade, that we're already prepared, right? We're getting ahead of it so that we can bring them in and partner with them early. So I 100% echo what you're saying.
Joe, is that part of the way that you're building the desire, the hunger, as we may call it, for the change?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of you're a great host. That's good. Good question. But I think absolutely it's partnering early, right? One of the things that we have the advantage of, when the pandemic came and we all kind of just changed and reacted, right? Pandemic was reactionary. What we're doing is very proactive, right? So being able to partner them in and say, look, we're creating governance committees. We're bringing in campus partners to say, what direction are we going to go? And we're not doing this alone. We're going to do this in guidance with one another. And again, going back to the sense of governance, it's just one of the things that AV people, we don't talk enough about is governance. And I think it's really important because that's how you can get that buy-in and that partnership so that everybody feels ownership, right? And it's not just that AV people. So 100% on that.
Yeah, that buy-in piece is so key, right? It's developing relationships with our faculty and our staff, which are basically our customers, right? There's a bit of an evangelical nature to all of that messaging and how you get it out. And one of the things that we push real hard on, that I was taught in very early days here, is that, hey, we're not here to come in and change how you teach and change how you do your job. We're here to give you the tools that you need to do your job, whatever that looks like. So that how we've worked through some of that is like we talked about already, is standardization, right? If I walk into a classroom in my business administration building and I go in to teach a class, I've got 5 minutes. And our rule is you've got to be able to a professor has to be able to get into that room, turn it on, make it work, make it sing and teach their class within 5 minutes, or we failed. The same experience needs to happen at the engineering building across campus. So if I'm a professor that's teaching something in general ed and I'm moving around from classroom to classroom, my experience is the same no matter where I go. We're blessed. Our technical debt, I'm betting, is probably somewhere between 5 and 7 years, depending on what building or what space. We've got some older ones, but for the most part, I bet if you were to take a look at it, that's where we're at. We're working hard on a 5-year refresh plan to where every 5 years, every classroom on this institution has been upgraded to the newer set of technology. Of course, budgetary constraints always play a role in that. The ability to be agile and move as technology changes based on your standards is always a challenge. But I think the big piece, like Joe and like Chris said, is working closely with our customers and making sure that they feel good about the things that we're doing, because if they feel good about it, they're going to trust us, and relationships are based on trust.
So with that, I want to pull up a polling question because I want to move into, what are you installing in your classrooms? What do you have planned in the next, whether it's 3 months, next year, what's the roadmap look like? So first I'm going to put up that poll question. It'll be up for a little bit. And so folks in the audience, just add, let us know what you're thinking about. And I'm also going to take a look at some of these questions because we've got a lot coming in. And if we don't have 5 hours, which is too bad. Someone here is, do any utilize transport protocol for devices on campus? If not, can you talk more about versions 2 or issues you have experience with deployment? And Joe, can you help me out with this one? Number 93.
Number 9. I can't believe there's so many questions. Right? People really want that.
I know.
that gift card. Yeah. I think, and kind of going to what the directions we're going, and that is a loaded question there, Joel. I'll write you a PhD dissertation on this one here. But I think the whole idea is we are all talking about the convergence of AV over IP and moving in IT. And I'm willing to bet now, majority of our departments probably live under IT. I know there's probably some outliers still, but we're probably that direction or moving that direction. And I think that right now, it's a lot less, what we're having to see is, and I think it was touched in here, is how can we now manage our spaces without having to be in our spaces, right? Remote management, remote monitoring, those are the things that started, configuration over IP, right? Those types of things, cloud services, all of that is starting to take hold, especially as we moved into IT, right? Because IT's been doing that forever. It was AV that was late to the game. And so I think what we're now starting to see is, and there's some great AV over IP solutions. So I'm not going to get into any specific names or whatever. But I think what's important is we're recognizing that it's the other things, being able to support and know, right? As was just talked about, get into a room in 5 minutes and be usable. Well, the best way to be able to support a room is to never have to go to the room, to know that it's down before anyone else tells us it's down, right? A part of success for us isn't by the number of calls we can support, but by how many calls we don't get. Right? That's the measure of success for us. And so I think that's what we're seeing is the move to AV over IP. Yes, because we can use data lines, all of that stuff. Take all the physical part out of it, but remote monitoring, remote configuration, support, all of those things are the things that you get as you start moving into that. So, and the other panelists probably have other points of view, but I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we're seeing and that why making that move.
So I want to add to that with what Joe's talking about, the remote monitoring piece being so key. So we've all talked about our disasters in our regions. Well, I'm Florida, so I'm a hurricane guy. And obviously we've had 2 pretty powerful hurricanes in the last 6 weeks come through Florida. In past experiences, a couple years ago, we had a couple pretty good storms come through, and we had to all hands on deck the day after campus was reopened for staff and for critical staff to come in and triage. And entire staff gets called in, even though the university is closed. We come in, we do classroom checks across the institution. Well, since then, we've implemented a monitoring platform, which tells us all the data that we need. So this time around, we went through that same scenario. We had one person on campus that looked at the rooms that we showed as offline, went triaged those, figured out what the issue was, got them back up and running, and were able to start classes back the following day. So it's those types of things that are critical, right, and mission critical for the things that we do. I love what you said, Joe, that it's not about measuring the tickets we get and the tickets we respond to. It's figuring out how to measure the ones that we're not getting because we're seeing things and being proactive. That's fantastic.
For our team, we're working with our network security. We put network switches that our networking team keeps track of, that all of our equipment is on. So we only have one line coming into the lectern and one power cord. Makes it a lot cleaner system, but we're utilizing those switches to be able to monitor more things. We're using cloud management with Solstice, Shore, Extron, Crestron. We're using everybody's cloud management. Now, if we could just find a way to get them all in the same room, that would be great, or the same application, because it's really tough sometimes when you got 10 different applications that you're trying to monitor. And with the small staff that we have, unfortunately, we're not well staffed like some people, Chris. Yeah, so for us, it's a lot. You got to have the remote management capabilities, and you have to work with your network team, because if you can't work with them to be able to utilize the network, there's no way you can continue to manage as many and as more classrooms as they keep bringing online.
Great points. So I want to get into, what do you have in your roadmap? What are you looking to install in the next few years? I asked the polling question. I'm hoping people are able to see what some of the results there, and just what do you have on your roadmap?
So some of the things that we've got, we're definitely putting more microphones, more cameras in our classrooms. As a matter of fact, we were trying demoing some cameras the other day in one of our larger conference rooms. It's not just about more, it's about making sure it's quality. Because a lot of the cameras that we have, you're trying to get the ones that can do tracking, things like that. And that's where I think AI is going to be a big help at some point. The other thing that we're working on doing is some more stuff within the active learning component. Trying some new technology to see how it will work for our faculty to make it less complex, more simple for them to share content around the room and be able to engage their students. Sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied today.
No, that's great. You mentioned active learning, and it's something that I wanted to bring up anyway. What does active learning look like today?
So let's say
for many years,
Yeah.
but what's that look like today?
So active learning at the University of Iowa started out with a component with a program they call TILE, and it's like teach, interact, learn, and engage. Hopefully none of my coworkers are on here and will tell me that I said it wrong. So that's our active learning, and what it looked like was round tables around the room that each had their own whiteboard, projector, TV, what have you. We pretty much all know what active learning looks like. The equipment that would take was it was like 2 or 3 or 4 racks of equipment depending on the size of your room. And then so what we're looking at doing is utilizing Immersive to put a Solstice pod behind each display, an iPad to control how the flow of information moves, what's shown and things like that, and to really scale down what it takes to build an active learning classroom. So we have an instructor right now that's requested us that we set it up in one of our rooms that has gotten very little use, just because it's not conducive the way it was set up. And this was one of those rooms that we weren't brought in. We didn't even have a hand in doing any of the installs. So it made it very hard. It makes it very hard for us to work on it, let alone guide people on how to use it. So that's one of our big goals, and we're hoping that this goes well, and I'm hoping to get it in place before our spring semester.
Yeah, I'm going to go off of that too, because I think you said something with like behind, lowering the rack unit amount. And I think that's the direction that we're even going in. If I look at what I did at my former institution, where we made every room every classroom was essentially a Zoom room well before the pandemic, where everyone thought I was crazy and why would you ever want to do that? Fast forward, and it's kind of usually everyone's standard now. But the thing is we moved from about 15 rack units for a classroom down to 2. And now the direction I'm going to go as we start to redo our technologies, my goal is 0 rack units. I want a fully zero-touch system, a fully self-supportable system. Those are the things we want to go. It's not even possible yet, but I think that's where we have to go. That's the world IT lives in, right? I mean, and we have enough, I'll just say nodes and peripherals in. I mean, if you look, our standard across campus is the Sennheiser TCC2 for our ceiling microphones and stuff. Again, that becomes a 0 rack unit. It hides from your people. And we can start doing that. And what you said about utilizing your displays and putting your nodes behind the displays to allow them to become more active and getting rid of the stuff in space. And I also look too, it's easier to support a classroom if I don't have to have stuff in there, right? If people can just walk in and the rooms work for them and work to their advantage, that's what we're looking, and we're really starting to kind of partner with to go to that. My goal, I want a 0 rack unit room. That's my goal. I'm putting it out there. So everyone, please reach out.
Send me pictures when you get it, because we just tried, like I said, with our new lecterns, we tried going down as much as we can. Unfortunately, we have, like everybody else, we have faculty who likes using certain piece of equipment. That dot cam, as much as my director would like to get them off the lectern, they're going to stay for as long as probably the remainder of my career at the University of Iowa. But it's those things. It's like we've all said, how do you get the faculty to welcome the new technology that we're looking to try to provide them?
Yeah, and off of that too, just a lot of it. That's where the pandemic worked for us because it changed everything. People had no other option than to, all of a sudden 5 days later, right? They're teaching online, no matter whether they liked it or not, they had to do it. So as they came back to campus and we could change the technologies, we kind of hide behind that, the pandemic wall. Now it is harder, right? Now to go and say, oh, we are going to rip this out. Now we're going to change this. That there's no global pandemic justification for these things. So that's where we have to partner with that. So absolutely.
We just did 3 active learning rooms over in our nursing over the summer, and the entire amount of racks on the back end was a 3-foot tall rack. That's all it took up. That includes amplifiers and UPSs. In the classrooms, there was a rack at the podium that was an ADA podium, and each TV had the ability to have a wireless input, and that could go anywhere in the room. Each room had 6 displays plus the instructor's projector. And so far, the result has been really good because of the way that we did it, the standardization, but also how simple it is, because if it isn't simple, they're not going to use it. And the new tech has helped us a ton on making this smaller. One of the ones that I'm looking forward to going into is these auto tracking cameras. Auto framing, we've seen a lot of. Auto tracking in a large classroom has always been a problem. We've seen it catch a wood grain on a door and go, oh, hey, I'm looking at a human face in the wood grain. Like, no, this isn't right. And we can't have that because our students would not put up with that. We want to give them something of quality. The other solutions in years past we've seen have required pretty much just as much effort as somebody sitting there switching and directing the cameras. Just recently, as of last Friday, I got off a meeting where we're going to be bringing in some cameras from a supplier and see what they can do. They promised some things. There's some potential, some different ways of handling it. And if it works out to our benefit, then we will be implementing it. And we actually have requests for it over the summer. And not only there, but in a president's conference room too. So it would be helpful to have something that looks really good. That technology is kind of crazy because how do you tell this machine that Joe just walked across the center of the room and it's not to follow Ann or stuff like that? And that's the hardest part of dealing with. And there's some really interesting things out there. Are they mainstream ready? I don't know. That's why we're testing them out. And that's one of the biggest things that I suggest to anybody is if something, get with your supplier and have them send you a demo. If they want to sell it to you, they're going to send you a demo. It's worth it to them to do that. So testing that out is critical, and that goes back to keeping up with everything and keeping us ahead of the curve.
And talking about being ahead of the curve, I'm a dad of a now adult learner, a college student. She just got out of high school. So I spent the last 4 years watching how the next generation of learners, that's why I'm so gray, how the next generation of learners are being taught and what their expectations are, right? And I think some of that we have to take into account as we make technology decisions on how we design our classrooms for the future. It's not just about what our faculty and staff want, but really about what the ultimate customer is, which is our students and how they want to learn. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes as the next generations, the next group of kids come out of that. All they've ever known is kind of an active learning environment from elementary school to middle school and then to high school. So they're used to that. They're not used to going into, I'm going to sit in a desk in a row and listen to somebody talk to me. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next 10, 12 years how all this changes and adapts and how we have to find technologies that work for them with the smallest footprint possible. I agree with you guys on that. And what will flat out work, right? It's finding what's innovative, but will still work and work at scale and be affordable with the budget constraints that we're all faced with in higher ed.
I think you just said something that we shouldn't glance over is, active learning, especially if you look at the generation that's coming in, active learning is not a technology solution. It's a teaching and learning methodology, right? And
Correct.
We are so used to thinking like, oh, what is an active learning? The first thing that comes to every one of our AV minds is, oh, the room with 6 screens around it. right? That's exactly what everyone starts thinking about. And that's sad that that's kind of how we did it. And maybe it was early in that. But if we start looking at using our online tools and using, our electric action, I love when you're talking about auto tracking. Can we automate things? Because a truly good active learning means getting the content in a different way so that the time you are together is used for collaboration, application, what it means. Because exactly, that's what the students were doing before in K through 12. And yes, it's different going into a large lecture hall, but if we are talking active learning, we shouldn't look at it as how many screens am I putting on the wall? How much money am I going to spend for my PowerPoint player? It really should be, how can I leverage that space to be effective in a modality that just isn't lecturing to a student, right? And looking at the active learning modality. And I think that's what's important. I love that you got that.
One of the funny things is the rooms we have that we just did for this summer have movable tables. So when we walk in there and they're teaching, they're using them as a regular classroom. They do have the ability to use them as active. But if a student comes in, one of the things we looked at, we have seen them turn on the TV without turning on the system. So why are they doing that? They're wanting to meet as a small group around this one display and not have to fire up the whole system and do collaborative learning together. So we set that up to where they can do that. And we find that there's a lot of times nursing, dentistry, even allied health. Those are some of the colleges up here on the health sciences campus, all have a lot of students that will go into the classroom and use that space as part of their independent learning of the material, to review it together, study for a test, try and wrap their head around something really difficult. And I like how you mentioned that, Mike, about your kid, seeing how your kid grew up and went through that. And Joe, how you kind of crossed that bridge of, we've always thought of active learning as a whole bunch of displays, but active learning is them, I guess a better way, the student taking an active role in their learning. And how do we leverage these classrooms to allow that? It's interesting and it's changing. That's the best part.
Well, and I think, the active learning too is also, we also got to look at that. It's the interaction, the engagement that it affords. So instead of sitting in rows, you're sitting around a table looking at each other and able to engage more. And we all know what that's like. When you used to sit at home at the dining room table, you'd all be facing each other. You wouldn't be sitting in a row. And it's easier to have engagement. It's easier to work with your peers and to talk to them, to be able to help yourself maybe learn, help them learn, and just be able to share and do more teamwork. Myself, I was not a team learner, and I still aren't. So I think today's students have a better chance of success because they've been learning the team process the whole way through.
Really great point. So Joe, you mentioned, it's about the pedagogy, and
yes.
Now, for many years, you work with instructional technologists and develop pedagogy around, help develop the pedagogy. But so many questions, but one that's going to kind of come down to the core. What do you think? Kind of mashing them together. What are the elements if you're building a brand new classroom today? And I know it depends on the use case, but if you're building a basic classroom today, what are the technology elements that go into each classroom? Right
now for us, it's microphones, cameras. We're still putting in the older technology except for Blu-ray players, because our faculty are still expecting it, and we can't. I know that our students are our true customers, but the faculty are the ones that are in the middle between us, and they have a lot more say than staff do at the University of Iowa. I can say that. So you really have to work with the faculty. You have to work to help them engage the students with the technology that's in the room, whether that's helping the faculty learn how to use it. We provide walkthroughs with our instructors. We schedule them with them to walk through if they're unfamiliar with the space. Because as hard as we try to make all our spaces the same, they're not. Our equipment varies in age from probably 15 years to, 5 years out for the most part. But it's hard to, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Because I just want to get, we talked about some standards.
Yeah.
Mike and Chris and Joe, we all talked about
Yep.
what are the standard pieces in your room? If you're building a new room, I forget about the legacy equipment.
Building a new room, mics, cameras for sure. And an accessible lectern, if you're still putting in a lectern.
Yeah, for sure. The accessibility piece is a big driver for us. Every classroom going forward, and we've retrofitted most have assisted listening capabilities for the hearing impaired. We've worked really hard to have ADA compliant or ADA accessible furniture for the students as well as for faculty. So ADA lecterns, ADA desks, things of that nature that are, like you mentioned, have motorized up and down. So if an instructor with a wheelchair comes in, they have that ability. A good solid user interface, control platform, good bright display and or projector, depending on the use case, voice lift, PTZ cameras in just about every space. We have tested and tested and tested looking for the unicorn that is the perfect speaker tracking, presenter tracking system. And to do it at scale is just not there quite yet. So we still work with PTZ cameras and an interface on the touch panel to give the faculty, the member, the ability to do what they need to do to stay in the shot. And then, voice lift, of course, wireless microphones and of course, good sound in every space.
I want to touch on that one thing you said about the display, the control panel, is that's one of the things that we are also standardizing on, is that we've worked with different faculty and staff to make sure that the panel that they're using is the same no matter which classroom they go into, no matter
Absolutely.
which colleagues they're with as well.
Yep, agreed.
We just implemented that ourselves across part of this last summer. We implemented that across the board and use it even in rooms that aren't centralized, that are specialized rooms and even conference rooms. And we stick to that pretty stoutly. We don't really vary from it. And that way, no matter what input you have, yes, we have the doc cams. Yes, we have the laptop with the BYOD. And yes, we, in cases, have the room PC. And that opens up to, okay, do we have video conferencing or not? Certain devices that we could sit down in the room to make a room ready for video conferencing real quick if we need. But all of those exist. But what heads that all up is a user interface that the users are familiar with and have seen before. My favorite part was going up to one of our Tulsa campuses and putting in a conference room. And I got ready to show the chair how to use it. He's like, oh, I use this down in the city all the time. I know exactly what I'm doing. He trained himself.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think there's much. I mean, you all kind of pretty much mentioned everything that I think we're all kind of doing. Really, the way we look at it is that our non-negotiable is that every single student deserves every single thing that any other student can get, whether or not you're in a room of 6 people or 600. And so that means that everything must be recorded. It must be able to have transcription and native language transcription, has to be accessible. It has to have ergonomic furniture. We have sustainability initiatives. We have to be fiscally responsible because we are a state school. So we look at it from that point of view, which then means, yes, every single room gets a ceiling microphone. It gets a display. It gets a display that actually all the math works out, that it's the right size and the right, all of that stuff. So we take it from the every student deserves, and then fill in the blank what that means. And the technology is easy from there. And then just a matter of which one you're going to do. But I think it's that checklist is where we start from. And we do have it's every space without exception. Gets everything. Assisted listening, you name it, whether it's for 6 or 600.
Great points. So,
Brian asked
question
a
here.
good question. Brian asked a good question in chat that I saw. How do you keep this sustainable? And a simple hard rule for us, 10% of the total cost, set it back. We have a 5-year refresh because we tell people, how long would you use your phone or your computer for work? 5 years. All right. Then you would not expect your AV to be reliable after 5 years. And we run with that constantly on everything. And if you set back 10%, that's enough to replace the devices that either fail or will need replacing at that time.
Yeah, I'll echo that. One of the things, and this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, one of the things that we as an AV industry and AV vertical do, we talk too much about capital expense and not enough about operational expense, right? We have to talk about total cost of ownership when we look at our systems and be able to say that from day one. This is why everyone knows I'm a huge fan of cloud. I'm a huge fan of software, right? It's a license. I can usually plan that out. I know exactly what I'm going to spend. And I know my life of it. And I think by saying that, when I put in a project proposal of, hey, we're going to upgrade XYZ, it includes, this is the cost today to put the stuff in. This is not the cost to support it the second we go live. And this is how much it's going to require there. And by the way, on X date, guess what? I'm coming back and asking for more money because this is now. And if you get more time out of it, great. But from day one, we have to talk about total cost of ownership. We have to move into an OpEx model and not just think of, oh, I got this little bucket of money to upgrade these things and then think that's the end of the story. And we've always kind of done that as a vertical. Hopefully it's changing. But yeah, I think you have to do that. And what the percentage is. I mean, I like your 10%. It's probably a good rule.
And that's why standardization is so important. Standardization is so important from a support footprint, right? Because after we install it, somebody has to maintain it, deal with it if there's issues and things like that. And if you're not standardized across the institution, there is no way to accurately keep everybody trained up well enough when you've got 10 different platforms you're running for control to adequately support, because we all don't have the support budget and support personnel that we need to do that. So it drives back home the point about standardization as well, and why standards are so important.
So I want to, I didn't realize that people can't see the poll results. We've only got 4 minutes left. In-ceiling microphones is the top of what people are going to be installing. Displays in interactive displays are up there. PTZ cameras across the board. AR, VR is the last on the list. Kind of surprised. I just wanted to make sure that I got that in there. We need to do closing remarks because we've only got 3 minutes left. Just less than 1 minute each now. If you had one piece of advice for your peers listening today, what would it be? I'm going to start with Joe.
Ann only said it one time, so we only had one person have to play the drinking game. AI, learn it, know it, leverage it. Automation is going to be key. We're really stoked to have just hired a chief data and AI officer that we got from NASA, and really excited about things we're going to be adding into our technologies and our classroom technologies. So I think huge opportunities there. Learn it, know it, and integrate it, because huge opportunities for automation and accessibility with it.
Great. Chris.
Something that was said to me this summer during one of the sessions at InfoComm: for every minute lost to technology, it's a minute lost to teaching, and you will not recover that. Our students are here to learn, and as long as we keep that in the forefront of our mind, you can't go wrong.
Sage advice. Ann.
Standardization. If we don't standardize, like we've said before, it makes it harder for the support team, which I'm a part of, to keep track and be able to quickly and efficiently get a room back online, or even upgrades and the designers doing their drawings. It's the whole path to getting a room working. It takes standardization.
Absolutely. And Mike?
For me, the biggest thing I would say is relationships, right? Take the time to develop the relationships with not just your faculty and your staff, but also for your brothers and sisters in the rest of your IT departments, your construction departments, the planning, design, construction, your BCO, understanding codes and how all that language works, and being able to pick up the phone and have a friendly conversation about something to solve a problem. One of the things that my director taught me when I first got here was, he calls it social and political capital. Build your social and political capital and build your relationships with your counterparts, and your life will be much, much easier for you and your team. You can get a lot more done.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Really, thank you, panel. Really great conversation. Almost 200 comments. We'll get back to you with as many as we can, including the contact information for our panelists. They don't know that yet, but we'll let you know who they are. Once again, I want to thank Atlona, LG, Mercive, and Sennheiser, because without them, we would not be able to do this panel. Thank you so, so much. And a drum roll, please. The winner of the $250 Amazon gift card is, from my very own state, Cynthia Wells. Our team will reach out to you. So thanks, everyone. Really great conversation. Let's keep it going. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.